Hey everyone, this is Ben Krebs. Welcome to the Mark Prater podcast, where we aim to connect our global family of churches to our executive director. You may notice if you watched the last episode, we are still in California because we want to talk about one more thing while Mark is there. Hey Mark, we're a growing global family of churches, and across the world there are pastors who are contacting us and asking about exploring joining Sovereign Grace, and we're sending men from the Emerging Nations team all over the world. Who decides who goes where to interact with these pastors and to serve them?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me ask you, first of all, let me ask you guys a question. I think both of you, along with Dave Taylor, were in Liberia about a year ago.
That's right.
Tell us how that trip went.
Eric, how do you think it went?
Oh, man. I mean, it was my first time in Africa, first time in West Africa, first time in Liberia. And, well, one is I had been in a bunch of countries recently, and Liberia was by far maybe the most advanced in training, deploying pastors, planting churches. It was compelling, brought me to tears. I don't know how many times just driving in the car hearing stories of how guys, particularly Diona, as he leads a group of churches, and then you might say is our primary contact, hearing him and his wife's story and how they've laid down their lives made me want to move to Liberia.
That's wonderful.
Or at least leave you there in Liberia.
You guys tried to leave me there. Dave Taylor was looking for an apartment for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Somehow we took, what was it, Dave Taylor, you and I went, and Dave and I had an ulterior motive. We were hoping to make you the apostle to Liberia. And
Ben, how did you get that title, Apostle to Liberia, by the way?
Well, I gave it to myself. You
gave it to yourself? Okay, that's always the best way.
That's the best way to get that title.
I was christened that by Dave Taylor, so.
Yeah.
Ben,
you've been in contact with Diona more recently.
I have.
What is the 15-second highlight? What's going on?
I had a phone call with him this morning. We're planning on. I'm taking another group of guys back at the in March, actually in a couple months. We're headed back. This time we're going to do a pastors training, equipping pastors. So they're bringing back. Diona's bringing back something 50 to 80 guys who just graduated from His Grace College. So there could be 150 pastors and a bunch of wives where we're going to be able to invest in marriages, just teaching on things that are not taught on at all, really, throughout Liberia. So we're getting excited about that opportunity.
That's great. That's great.
It's quite something to be around Diona and see what he's doing bivocationally, because he works another job, where he is teaching biblical theology, reformed theology, expositional preaching in a context where it's almost all prosperity gospel, and these men, we're teaching them things about gospel-centered ministry that they've never heard, and to watch them come alive to it is not to be missed in my view. That's great.
Thanks for going back. I'll be praying for you.
Yeah, pray for Diona as well. We're taking him through the ordination process. So Eric and I went, and a number of other guys have traveled. Who does decide who's going to travel and be a part of Emerging Nations, Mark?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not me. I don't decide those things. There's a couple of ways that plays out.
With an iron fist.
Yeah, that's right.
Apparently, because Ben and I went.
Yeah, right. You guys actually did something wrong.
Don't let anybody go. Apparently, it doesn't appear that there's any leadership happening here, because
exactly.
I was invited to go.
Yeah, that works. It's just very organic. It just kind of happens, man.
We're just texting you from Liberia. Hey, Mark. By the way, I'm in Liberia.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's how I learned. No, it plays out a couple of ways. First, through the leadership of Dave Taylor, who's our director of Emerging Nations. What Dave has really taken initiative to do is to form a global emerging global nations team that I think has captured the right guys who can serve in different countries. But he's able to find those guys because they themselves are taking initiative towards Dave or someone that they may know, another pastor, for example, in another nation, and just beginning to build a relationship with them. So, for example, I was just in Annapolis, Maryland with Ed O'Mara. He's been building relationships with pastors in Italy.
In Italy, right.
And so because of his initiative, we're able to have sort of a doorway open to us where at least 2 churches there are interested in forming a partnership with Sovereign Grace. So I would say it's our pastor's initiative and it's the leadership of Dave Taylor.
Wonderful. And Dave is doing a remarkable job.
Yes.
As someone who's on that team.
Yeah.
So
can I ask you a question? What Mark, if there's somebody out there, one of the guys watching the podcast, he's thinking, hey, I'd like to get involved. I'd like to figure out how I fit into this. What do they do?
Yeah. I think there's a couple things you can do. First of all, just as you express your desire, is there a particular part of the world that you just are burdened for or would love to serve in? And when you reach out to Dave Taylor, which would be the next step, just email Dave Taylor and just tell him you just want to serve anywhere, but you have a particular burden for a particular part of the world. Let him know that too. And he'll just begin to interact with you and figure out, is there a way that you could be deployed in serving what we're doing globally?
Excellent.
Hey,
Eric,
Ben, can I add two?
Yeah, please.
Now, I think one of the most encouraging things on my end, now I'm not traveling with Emerging Nations as much in Davis, much as I was in the past, but a really cool innovation in Sovereign Grace Churches has been the local church's ownership of the mission. Yeah. So instead of being centrally funded and coordinated, you have a guy who calls Dave and says, I'm willing to serve. Where can I go? And my church, so most, if not all, the guys that are traveling right now internationally, their local church is funding their travel and their expenses. Right. And they're committing regular time. It's not just a one-off, but they're saying, I'll put a couple weeks a year into this and so many dollars out of our budget. And that's been really encouraging to watch local churches just step up and say, we're going to own this, and more than, send us somewhere, but we're actually going to fund this thing. We're going to get behind it. And that has been really encouraging.
Yeah, and I think that approach really strengthens partnership overall, because a lot of our partnership in Sovereign Grace is among pastors, and we're trying to figure out how do we have our members enjoy aspects of our partnership more. And I think that's one of them. Once a church hears that, for example, you, Ben, are going to Liberia and they're funding some of that, and they can't wait for you to get back and give a report. Yeah. They're much more invested into, and yet tied into our mission outside of the United States in ways that we're advancing the gospel, that even though they may never go to Liberia, they feel like they're a part.
Right. Excellent. That's so true. And to be able to stand in front of my church as I did last year and again this year, and commend the church for supporting me to be able to go to Liberia brings a lot of joy to the folks in our church, that they know that they played a part in training pastors in Liberia. So amen to all that.
Yeah. Thanks for going again, man.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. All right. Well, thanks for taking time to watch the podcast. Hope this was helpful to all of you. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, Mark would love to hear from you. For more videos like this, hit subscribe on YouTube or by email at markkprater.com.